Okay, today we're taking a hard look at something so common we all do it without even thinking twice: buying clothes. We're going to challenge a really basic, universally accepted assumption. You know the one: the idea that buying cheaper clothes automatically means you're saving money. Sounds logical, right? But as we're about to see, the hidden mechanics of the fashion industry tell a completely different story. So let's just dive right into this. Picture this. You're walking through the mall. On your left, you spot a basic t-shirt for $9.99. On your right, another store is selling a shirt that looks pretty much identical, but it's 95 bucks. Looking at the two, the cheaper one seems like the absolute no-brainer. I mean, why on earth would you pay almost 10 times more? Cotton is cotton, right? A shirt is just a shirt. So naturally, you grab the $10 one and feel pretty good about it. But let's fast forward a bit. 6 months later, go look at that bargain purchase. The fabric is totally faded, the collar looks like a stretched out bacon strip, and the stitching is already unraveling. It's basically unwearable for anything other than, painting the garage or sleeping. So what do? You head back to the mall and you buy another one. And then a few months later, you buy another one. Without you even realizing it, that cheap option has quietly and steadily become the really expensive one. And that brings us to the crucial point here. There is this hidden machine operating in fashion. You see, clothing isn't actually expensive because of what you pay at the cash register that one single time. It becomes expensive because of how many times you are forced to buy it again. Everything changes. Literally everything. When you train yourself to stop just glancing at the initial price tag and start looking at the total lifetime cost of the garment. We normally just lump clothes into two buckets: cheap or expensive. But the industry actually runs on four completely different business models. At the very bottom, you've got ultra-fast fashion, cranked out in weeks, where the only goal is sheer novelty. Then there's fast fashion, making massive quantities just to hit today's fleeting trends. Step up a bit, and premium brands step in, focusing on better materials and durability so the clothes actually survive a wash cycle. And finally, luxury, which mixes fabrics with craftsmanship, branding, and heritage. The real differentiator across these isn't just how they look on the hanger, it's how long they're actually designed to last. To really wrap our heads around this, think about something totally outside of fashion: buying a light bulb. On one hand, you've got a $2 bulb that's going to burn out in a few months. On the other hand, a $12 bulb that will easily last for years. Which one is actually cheaper in the long run? Well, it's obviously the $12 one. Yet, for some strange reason, when we're standing in our closets, we completely throw that logic out the window. Clothing lifespan is the ultimate hidden differentiator. So let's pop the hood. What are you actually paying for when you buy a $120 hoodie instead of a $25 one? You definitely aren't just paying for 5 times more cotton. You're paying for longer fiber fabric that won't pill up after 2 washes. You're paying for much stronger thread, reinforced stitching, and high-quality dye that isn't going to bleed all over your other laundry. You're also covering the invisible stuff: rigorous product testing, tons of quality inspections, and way lower defect rates. It's the end result of hundreds of deliberate manufacturing decisions. Think of it literally like buying a well-built bicycle instead of just grabbing the cheapest one they have at a big box store. Sure, technically both of them will get you down the street on day one, but only one of them is going to keep doing its job smoothly, safely, and reliably for years without the chain popping off every time you hit a bump. And to really get why those quality decisions cost so much money, you have to understand the massive barriers to entry in making clothes. It takes a ton of cash up front. You need heavy investments in industrial sewing machines, skilled pattern designers, factory workers, quality control teams, and huge warehouses. But here's the real kicker. Where companies actually compete the hardest is inventory management. They have to guess what you're going to want months in advance. Guess wrong? Your warehouse fills up with unsold products. And unsold clothing is basically worth zero. Let's actually follow the money upstream to see where it all goes before a shirt even reaches that warehouse. It's a massive journey. Step 1 starts out at raw fiber farms for your cotton, or chemical factories for synthetics like polyester. Step 2, those raw fibers travel to textile mills to get spun and woven. Step 3 hits the assembly factories where the fabric is cut, dyed, and sewn together. Step 4 ships the finished garments to sprawling distribution centers. And finally, Step 5, they arrive at retail stores or your local delivery hub. By the time you actually put that simple shirt on, it has navigated an incredibly complex maze. Everyone, from the freight companies moving the cargo ships to customs brokers, local landlords, payment processors, and store owners, every single one of them has taken a cut. It makes that one shirt the final stop in a sprawling global supply chain. Dozens of entirely separate businesses have to get paid before the clothing brand itself earns a single dime of profit. Which brings us to the real profit center, and honestly, this is the big surprise. Fast fashion companies don't actually win because they have some massive profit margin on every shirt. Actually, their margin per item is tiny. They win by selling you frequency. They use a brilliant, albeit sneaky, model called the replacement cycle. They constantly push weekly new arrivals, flash sales, and influencer trends on social media. The goal isn't to make one great shirt. The goal is to make you believe that the perfectly fine shirt you bought last month is already outdated, so you'll go buy another one. It really boils down to a battle for your wallet between two totally opposite business models. On one side, fast fashion absolutely depends on selling you frequency and churning through trends. On the flip side, premium and luxury brands are playing a totally different game. They sell fewer items overall, but they aim for much higher margins on each piece, longer garment life, and deep brand loyalty. One of them wants to see your credit card every single week. The other wants to live in your closet for a decade. But hey, we have to be completely fair here and look at the risks across the board. Cheap clothing comes with heavy hidden costs that never show up on your receipt. Stuff like the urge to impulse shop, overflowing closets, zero resale value, and a disastrous amount of textile waste sitting in landfills. However, going the luxury route isn't risk-free either. You run a very real risk of just overpaying for a fancy logo, with absolutely no guarantee that the garment is actually well made. Because while price and quality are definitely related in the fashion world, they are absolutely not identical twins. Just because a jacket costs a fortune doesn't automatically mean it's going to last forever. And that is exactly why buying smart and actually understanding what makes a garment durable is way more important than just blindly swiping your card for a premium label. So all of this naturally raises the ultimate question. If the price tag is basically lying to us half the time, and if those cheap clothes are secretly draining our bank accounts, what actually separates a good purchase from a bad one? How should we be measuring the true value of our wardrobe? Drum roll, please. It all comes down to one simple, absolute game changer of a metric: cost per wear. This one little calculation changes absolutely everything about how you should look at shopping. Let's just do the math on this. A $120 premium jacket sounds pretty pricey up front, right? But if it's built well enough to be worn 240 times, it's only costing you 50 cents every time you put it on. Now contrast that with a $30 fast fashion jacket that falls apart or goes out of style after just 20 wears. That is $1.50 per wear. Using this metric, the expensive jacket was actually 3 times cheaper than the bargain bin find. Let's look at a real-world scenario to really cement this: the 5-year wardrobe test. Imagine two people, Alex and Jamie. They both wear t-shirts every single day. First up is Alex. Alex buys 5 $20 shirts every year because they constantly shrink, fade, and just look awful after a few months. That's $100 annually, hitting $500 total over 5 years. Then you have Jamie. Jamie bites the bullet on day 1 and drops $60 each on 5 premium shirts. Because they're high quality and cared for, they last the entire 5 years. Jamie's total cost? Just $300. The results at the end of those 5 years are pretty mind-blowing. Jamie spent $200 less overall, created way less textile waste, bought fewer shirts, and spent way less time trudging back and forth to the mall. Alex, on the other hand, literally paid for the exact same wardrobe twice over that same period. As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with this really provocative truth. The cheapest clothes in your closet often become the most expensive. Not because they cost more today, but because every single replacement quietly restarts the bill. You walk into the store totally believing that the cheapest shirt is saving you money, but now you know the hidden math behind the machine. So as you look into your own closet today, you have to ask yourself, how much is that cheap t-shirt really costing you?